everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to do some introductions first, and then we'll start our slideshow. I am Sarah Johnson. I work for Janesville Mobilizing for Change. We're a coalition here in Janesville working to reduce risk-taking behaviors by youth, basically trying to make Janesville a safer, healthier community for our youth.
I'm Officer Chad Sullivan. I'm a crime prevention officer with the City of Janesville Police Department.
I'm Danny Robb, and I'm a school social worker with the Janesville School District. I work at Craig and Parker High Schools. Been in the district. This is my 6th year in the district. I started doing in the district on a grant doing drug and alcohol prevention, and so now I'm actually on another grant doing more kind of like discipline. And the reason I'm here actually today is just for part of our grant, we wanted to do some parent education, parent outreach throughout our grant, and so this was a good opportunity for us to partner up with these people here today. So,
I'm Jennifer Keach. I'm the Rock County Coroner. I'm here to give my perspective as a coroner on this topic. And on behalf of the rest of the panel, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight.
And if you have any cell phones, if you could just make sure that they're quieted, it gets to be an interruption if something goes off while we're presenting. I appreciate it. So our program tonight is called Good Drugs Gone Bad, and the premise behind that is that prescription drugs are good drugs. They're helpful, they're useful for people who are under a doctor's care using them as they're prescribed. So what are we facing? Why is this a problem here in Janesville, in Rock County, in the United States? Well, CBS, the early morning show, coined it as Pharmageddon, which is a pretty accurate term because for the first time, unintentional overdoses have replaced car accidents as the leading cause of death, accidental death, here in the United States. So if you can see, while it's great, motor vehicle deaths have gone down, your drug poisonings have gone up. And Jennifer will talk to you real quick about what this actually looks like in Janesville, in Rock County.
I've been the coroner for Rock County since 2005, and in that time, I started tracking overdose and drug-related deaths because it seemed like there was an awful lot of them. And what I can tell you is that prescription medications are by far the more frequent type of overdose death that we see. The drug overdose deaths that we think about, when we think about that topic at all, we think about cocaine overdoses and heroin overdoses and other illegal substances, but it's actually the prescription medications, sometimes in combination with illegal substances, that I most often see. The trend over the past 7 years has generally been increasingly opiate analgesics, your oxycodone, your Vicodin, your Percocet, Percodan, then also things like Xanax, Valium, anything that makes you feel mellow and sleepy, kids will abuse. But it's not just prescription medications either, it's also over-the-counter medications that we've increasingly seen. Even from my own perspective as a coroner, I think I was shocked the first time I saw somebody that actually died from an overdose of cough medicine. I've also seen overdoses on those over-the-counter caffeine pills, okay? So, those aren't particularly safe either. But pretty much anything, and you'd be amazed at what people will get into, but pretty much anything in your medication cabinet that makes you feel sleepy or energetic can be abused by an adult or a teenager. So we have seen that increasing, and maybe this is because law enforcement is doing such a great job of arresting folks that are selling illegal drugs, that we're seeing people turn to prescription medications. Or maybe it's just the ease of access, which is another concern that I have.
Brilliant police are tonight investigating 2 possible drug overdose cases, one deadly, they believe could be related. Police say a 30-year-old man they found passed out at home was taken to a hospital. Then this morning, Police say they found a 28-year-old man dead outside his family's residence. Officers say both men were with a third person last night, and so they're interviewing that third person to try to find out what may have happened to both men. Police say both men took prescription drugs. Drug abuse has long been a problem for young people in northeast Wisconsin, and not just street drugs like heroin and cocaine, but also the abuse of prescription drugs.
And a federal report last year indicated that 15% of high school seniors say they had raided a medicine cabinet and abused a prescription drug within the previous year. Fox 11's Ryan Dietz takes a closer look at what officials are doing to keep kids' hands off your pill bottles.
He never got to learn from his mistake.
Karen Falk knows all about prescription drugs. That's because her son, Corey McNeil, died of an overdose almost 3 years ago.
These kids need to understand that messing with this stuff is only tragedy can happen. I mean, even if it doesn't kill you, it can certainly ruin your life.
Most people know about the dangers of marijuana and cocaine, but how about what's in your medicine cabinet? It's stories like Falk's that have law enforcement agencies kicking off their Good Drugs Gone Bad campaigns to raise awareness about the abuse of prescription drugs.
This is a serial killer that we need to take off the streets.
This is 1 year of drugs confiscated from places where deaths have occurred. Officials say it's important to keep drugs like this away from teenagers.
Lock up your prescription drugs. Keep it away from the kids.
That bottle is not safe in your medicine cabinet. It needs to be locked up. It needs to be put away. Keep the drugs away. Make them, at least if they're going to have them, make them work for them.
State legislation is in the works to create a registry of when and who buys a prescription to crack down on what pill abusers can get their hands on, and also to give parents like Karen Falk some peace of mind. In the town of Menasha, Ryan Dietz, Fox 11 News.
Officials also encourage you to bring your extra prescriptions to a local pharmacy where pills can be properly thrown away. You can find that information on our website, fox11online.com.
So like we've heard a couple times, when you talk about drug abuse, a lot of times you think of your illegal drugs, your marijuana, your cocaine, those kinds of things. However, drug abuse encompasses more than that. It is both your recreational use, taking it to get high or to feel good or to alter your mood, but it's also self-medicating. So it's taking a medication without a doctor's prescription for that. It's taking somebody else's medication. It's taking a medication you maybe were prescribed months ago for something that happened. That's all abuse, and all can lead to overdose, addiction, and in the worst case scenarios, death. So in your head, answer this question. How many prescriptions in the state of Wisconsin alone are filled in 1 month's time? $5 million prescriptions in Wisconsin in 1 month. Seems like a lot of medication. However, when you start to take a look at this, I thought, cute cartoon, it really kind of starts to explain why there's so many prescriptions that are out there. You know, babies, infants, toddlers, ear infections, strep throat, you're on your amoxicillins, your antibiotics. A little bit older, in your elementary years, you've got a lot of Ritalin prescriptions. High school, you've got your appetite suppressants. Then you're studying for college, you're taking your no-dose pills. Then you've got the Prozac, which is the mom with the toddler with the ear infection. And you've got your older Xanax, and like 65 plus, everything else goes. So 5 million pills are being prescribed every month in Wisconsin.
This kid died from using illegal drugs. And this kid died from using prescription painkillers. Now you tell me, which one's more dead? Talk to your kids about prescription drug abuse.
One of the biggest problems was touched on a little bit earlier is access. In Wisconsin, and this is a quote from our Attorney General, 60% of our teenagers are reporting that they have easy access to controlled substances around their house. 20% of those admit that they've actually gone in there, raided those cabinets to get those medications to get high. So we've pulled some news articles from across Wisconsin. These are only Wisconsin. You've got legislators who are misusing medications. Nurses are abusing and stealing prescription drugs. Kindergarten teachers. Your FedEx guys. This was a teenage girl, 15 years old, in the town of Menasha that police caught with a backpack full of 200 pills. She had no idea what she had in there. It was a random assortment of pills. She was just selling them and people were buying them. You get a little bit more local, and we've got a case in Milton.
This was a particularly sad case. This youngster was found deceased in his bedroom when his mom went in to wake him up for school. And initially there was some concern that about what the boys were doing. He had a friend spend the night. And we did an autopsy, which is pretty standard when you have an unexplained death of a young person. And toxicology came back that this kid had oxycodone in his system, and a really high amount of it too. And of course, the police investigated, questioned a lot of people. It turned out, if I recall correctly, that these kids were, getting these drugs at parties with other kids from the school. I believe a girl was charged in relation to this death, that she had stolen the medications, I think, from a relative, and had either sold them or passed them out to her friends. Alexander, we believe he actually grounded up and snorted a time-release type capsule. You're all familiar with the time-release type medications. They have a coating on them, or they come with a gel cap outside so that they dissolve more slowly in your digestive system and the medication is released over time. Well, when you take a high dose pill that's a time release and you grind it up and you snort it, absorption through the mucous membranes, it's nearly instantaneous. So instead of getting that high dose over a long period of time, you're getting it all at once. And in this case, it was fatal for this young man. And 13, what do you think about your kids doing when they're 13? You think about them going to a school dance, and you think about them having the experiences of early puberty and noticing girls or boys or whatever it is. You don't think about them snorting pills and dying in their bedroom in the morning before school.
Everybody heard about this going on? Our Walgreens issue that we've got. It's kind of we're trying to do some stuff to prevent this from happening, to see if we can do anything to catch this particular person. So if anybody has any information on this guy, we'll take it. Pay you through Crime Stoppers, I guess. We got money for that. We want to catch this person, but we don't know if this person's going around to all these Walgreens for the purpose of getting as many pills as possible to sell, or if this person has an addiction themselves. As recently as a few weeks ago, he got 2,100 pills from Edgerton Walgreens. So that's a lot of pills at one point in time. And so we just don't know what's going on, what's motivating this person. It could be for sale, it could be for a serious addiction. But it is happening. So what I'm gonna ask you is, when you're out and about and you're going to the pharmacy, keep an eye out for somebody coming in with a hood on and a winter jacket with something covering their face, because that could be our guy. Give us a call, call 911, we want to catch this person really bad. But this is happening, and it's not going to stop. I mean, this person, and people, and it's not just happening in southern Wisconsin. This person's migrating between Madison and Janesville, but we have if you look in the news, you'll see other stories of this happening throughout the country, really. So we're seeking this person in here. Our chief of police, this is a quote from him. He knows the majority of our heroin users start the addiction by abusing prescription meds. We don't know what reason it is, cost or lack of availability. These individuals will migrate from prescription meds to heroin. We have talked to our recent heroin dealers, people we've arrested, asking them, how did this happen? We found that a lot of these kids that are doing heroin together right now in their group in their 20s and early 30s. It actually started back in high school with marijuana use, kind of getting into prescription meds a little bit. It's kind of weird. I've been a police officer for 16 years, and this is the first real concern that we're having in regards to prescription overdoses and the abuse of prescription meds. It's not, we haven't been focusing on that in law enforcement, and I can tell you now, we are changing focus. I receive a lot of our Crime Stopper tips, and I can tell you, I'm constantly getting tips on people selling their prescription meds illegally. So now it's starting to be top of mind for people. I think we're making progress in letting people know that this is an issue that we need to deal with quickly, because unfortunately, with Jen, she's seeing a lot younger kids, all right, 13 years old. Why would they be taking prescription meds to get high? I just can't imagine children needing that, and then they don't know, and it's so accessible that they take too many, and then it takes over their body. That's disturbing to me. And for a 13-year-old to feel like, however they got on that track, that's the way that they're going to get high and get that feeling. Oxycodone, for most people, will make you feel very, it'll give you a lot, it's a stimulant, give you a lot of energy. Why a 13-year-old needs energy, I don't know, but in this case, it was given to them, they're selling them at the parties. That's what we need parents to pay attention to, is there's no age limit for this at all. It could be younger. Those are the kids we need to pay attention to. So, and prescription meds are involved in 70% of overdose deaths in southeastern Wisconsin. And as Jen said, that's the majority of what she's seeing. It's not heroin. We're getting heroin overdoses too. What we're finding is prescription meds are the gateway drug. So you got THC, marijuana, the gateway drug to possibly prescription meds. Easy access, more accessible, cheaper. Now, which leads to heroin, which is very readily accessible in Wisconsin. In Janesville, in southern Wisconsin right now, we're seeing a lot of heroin overdoses, a lot of heroin use, which is very disturbing to us. Pharmacy robberies. We're going to really start focusing on this and working with the pharmacies to do some crime prevention things. We're seeing some resistance right now, but I think we're going to make progress to try to make this more preventable from not allowing them access to the pharmacist and all the drugs at the pharmacies. If you guys gone into a pharmacy lately, pretty wide open, isn't it? You can walk up to the counter, there's no screens, there's no crime prevention.
Question?
Yes.
Do you know what the street value is for Oxy right now?
I mean, I hear anywhere from $10 to $20 a pill.
Per pill.
So it's not real cheap. It's cheap to get a prescription medicine. If you have, so what the problem is we have people. We've done search warrants on houses. Just recently, we did a whole big heroin and prescription drug roundup and did a bunch of search warrants, and we got over 600 pills in one safe. And this person had them legally, but was selling them because they had such a disease that had access to so many pills, and turned to selling them for extra money, which is, the fact they have access to that many pills legally, I mean, that's disturbing in itself. There is some legislation out there that is working in a positive way to not allow access or to get people who are doing some of the things I'm going to talk about here. Actually, I'm going to go forward a little bit. Because we're doing, I'll go back, we'll keep it on track with the, I don't want to get ahead of myself and I talk too much, and I already told her I wasn't going to talk too much. Some of the things that you're going to hear, especially parents, maybe some of the kids here, is farming is grabbing a handful of prescription drugs, swallowing some or all of them. Kind of just doing the old Russian roulette with the pills. We got a good commercial that comes on here in a little bit. Robo-tripping, Robitussin, cough medicine. I can't even imagine that. But using that to get high is just kind of sick. But it's out there, and that's what high school kids are using. It is happening. I've talked to them. And that's where parents come into play. And that's kind of our theme here at the end of this, is what parents can do to fight this. Skittling. As you see, if you're looking at the chart here of all the different drugs, all the different colors, all of that stuff. In fourth grade, I do a presentation for fourth graders on good pills, bad pills. You know, they all look like candy. You know, and letting these kids know that it's not candy. A lot of this stuff is very serious stuff if it's in the medicine cabinet. Teaching them not to just grab it and eat it like a Skittle, because they could look like Skittles. But they're taking them all, they put them all into a bowl, and then they grab out whatever they get. Yeah. From what we're hearing is they're very popular. It's more than underage drinking parties at times now. And that's why this presentation, this is the first of hopefully many, because I'd love to see this room filled up, because there's nobody, all right, if this was a presentation on heroin and the abuse of heroin and maybe cocaine, I could see not having access to as many parents as we should. There's not one parent in the Janesville School District, in any school district in this country, that couldn't become victim of this kind of a problem with your children. So this kind of education for parents to let them know. I gave a quote in the paper. All right, heroin's not in every house. Cocaine's not in every house. THC's not in every house. Marijuana. Prescription drugs, 5 million in 1 month. They're in every house. Where are they? How accessible are they? It's time to pay attention to that and lock them up, put them in certain areas that the kids can't get to. Even your Robitussin. How disturbing is that? You can't even leave Robitussin in the counter in your cabinet.
Benadryl too.
And Benadryl, you bet. There's a new one. We just saw it. What is it called? It's the Vapor Teenies. Yes.
Diphenhydramine is the generic name of Benadryl.
There's a new thing that's out there. We just got information on it. It's called Vapor Teenie. A Vapor Teenie is where they take the gases from alcohol, pure alcohol, and go directly into their, and inhale that, kind of like huffing, directly into their system. And it goes past, they don't, what's the words, well, the story that said is that they don't go to the kind of buzzed phase. They go from 0 to 100 in regards to their intoxication and passing out. They don't even vomit. It doesn't cause vomiting, which is a sign that you've had too much. That's what's scary about this stuff. We're going to do some more research on it and get a little bit more on it, but she just sent me an article on that, and that just seems really, really scary. That's the thing, is these kids, there's a lot of the fake marijuana that's out there right now. It looks like potpourri, but they're smoking it. That's out there. It's very strong in some cases, and we've seen kids that have been really affected bad in their brain and other things because of this fake marijuana that's now being sold over the internet pretty easily. We used to have a store in town until we shut them down in regards to selling this different product. But
so I'm going to actually kind of echo a lot of what Chad said as far as things that we're seeing, the synthetic marijuana in the schools, and you know, the cough syrups. I mean, you know, those are things that we are seeing and hearing about in the schools. So this chart here actually shows kind of, it just represents kind of what kids are reporting that they are using, and marijuana is showing up as the #1 abused drug, followed by inhalants, and then prescription drugs is, you know, #3 on that list, almost tied with inhalants there. So it is definitely a growing issue and a growing problem within our teens that we have in our buildings. So, all right. So every 3 years, the Janesville School District, and they do this all around the state, but the youth, they take a survey, and in that survey, they ask them several questions about tons of different things, and this is one of the questions they ask is, and I want to make sure I say it the right way, but so for 10th graders, they ask them how many of them have actually taken a prescription drug that was not prescribed to them. So that's the first column there, and 23% said that they did. And so those could be, you know, like a parent, you know, saying, here, take this, you know, because, you know, it's just a little, it might not, you know, hurt. But they weren't taking it for, I guess, the intention to get high is the difference there. And then 15% are taking it for the intent to get high. And so this is a self-reported survey. It's anonymous, and it's collected, like I said, every 3 years. And so we have 10th grade and 12th grade on there. And we also looked at their 6th graders and our 8th graders that also take this. And 7% of our 6th graders had reported taking a prescription drug without a parent or without a prescription. And then 12% of our 8th graders also. So, I mean, it's kind of a high number, and it's obviously growing as they get older. So how are drugs obtained? This graph here is going to just kind of show us what we're seeing. This comes from SAMHSA, and we're seeing that 56% are free from a friend or a relative. So most of our teens are getting them from friends or relatives. 19% are from a doctor. 4% are actually buying them from a drug dealer, somebody they don't maybe know. Maybe you don't know what you're getting exactly all the time. 5% are stealing or taking them from a relative or a friend without asking. So that could be, you know, being at grandma's house or at your own home, you know, finding them. And then 9% reported buying them from a relative or a friend. So.
Okay, drug diversion, basically, how are they getting these? Prescription frauds, robberies and burglaries, internal theft. We're seeing those across the board, all right? So the one thing we're seeing is a lot of doctor shopping, where they'll go to one doctor, they'll get a prescription. Then they're gonna go to the next doctor, they can get another doctor for another ailment. They're faking ailments to go to different doctors, knowing that they're gonna get a prescription very easily. We did a really good job. Have you ever tried to buy Sudafed lately? Okay. Sudafed, they regulate that stuff like crazy because they use that to make methamphetamines and other things like that. So we've got a pretty good system of logging who's taking and buying Sudafed. Well, we're going to work towards going to multiple pharmacies and figuring out who's going and getting more than one prescription in a day from different pharmacies. More communication between the pharmacies, which is kind of a big task, you know, but they're working on that and how to do it the right way. We have an email system through the Janesville Police Department where we have very open communication with our regular people. That if we do a search warrant and we get activity that we've made an arrest because of prescription fraud or because of possessing pills, we send out those names, and we have now, we're getting education with the pharmacies to let them know that all of the HIPAA laws are thrown out when it becomes a crime. There's criminal activity. The pharmacies they're not held by HIPAA laws. It now trumps that, and they are to communicate that. They can communicate that information with us, and we can openly communicate about criminal activity that's happening in the pharmacies. So we're working on that. As you can see with doctors, they're very scared about this. Pharmacists, very scared to open up communication with law enforcement, but we're breaking down that wall, and we're making a lot of success. So we have now one officer in our street crimes unit that is communicating with all pharmacies on a regular basis, and we're starting to get ahead of the legislation that's going to come out that's hopefully going to regulate people as they get prescriptions illegally, make it harder. A lot of them are stealing prescription pads. They actually tried this fairly unsuccessfully with a lot of those. The pharmacists pretty much know who their customers are. They know, and they start to get leery of different people, and they get us involved fairly quickly now. Some of the different scams, I mean, they'll go to open houses with realtors and look into, so we've done education with all the realtors, letting them know, keep an eye on your customers, don't let them open up, you know, medications, keep an eye on them, be with them at all times. Sleepovers at friends, emergency visits. They're actually looking at obituaries and committing burglaries in houses where somebody has passed away. How sick is that? But they'll go, somebody passed away, they'll see the age of the person, figure that that person may have lived alone, and they break into the house knowing that there's probably a whole slew of prescription meds that are sitting in that house that haven't gotten rid of yet. Caregivers and service providers, we've seen a lot of that going on where they're stealing, taking a pill here, taking a couple there, taking from grandma and grandpa. They go and making surprise visits to grandma and grandpa, and all of a sudden grandma and grandpa are the greatest people in the world, and they get a lot of visits from their teenage grandkids. That's a clue for some of them. Not all of them. Babysitters, there you go. Yeah, know your babysitters, know who's in your house. And that's one of the things. It's always going to resound around this whole theme of locking things up, limit access, which will take care of a lot of the problems of these kids getting this.
So, how was school today?
Okay.
Is your back still hurting you?
Yeah, it really hurts. I just picked up a new prescription today.
Drugs aren't just on the streets.
I'm gonna call your dad, please.
Don't be your kid's pusher. Safeguard your prescription medications.
This message was paid for by the Wisconsin Department of Justice.
So it keeps coming back to access. If we can prevent kids from getting these medications, we prevent them from taking them, we prevent them from getting addicted to them by abusing them, we prevent them from escalating to heroin, from visiting you at the coroner's office. It's not hard to do. We just have to be a little bit more conscientious of what's being abused and how to keep it out of their hands. So you've heard a lot of names of pills, oxys and Vicodins and all this stuff. So there are brochures in the back with pictures of pills along with the use of taking them so you can identify medications. But here's just a couple of the categories. This would be the biggest category of abuse, and that's your strong pain relievers. Here's a couple of pictures down here, but mostly these are what you hear of referred to as oxys. Vicodin's another one, Percocet's the generic version. They're very important for those people that are using them as prescribed and under a doctor's supervision. However, it's the #1 abuse medication. Stimulants are another one. So you see students who are high achievers at school, high school or even college, and they want to stay awake and they want to study. So they take their friend's Adderall. Keeps them awake, keeps them stimulated. That's a second choice of abuse. A third one is your downers. I'm so stressed, high school is so stressful, I need a pill to relax. Your Valiums, your Xanaxes. So why are they abusing them? Why are kids taking these? Why are people taking these that they're not supposed to get? Well, we've talked about how easy they are to get. In medicine cabinets, 5 million of them are prescribed every month in Wisconsin. Another one that's on there, parents are less likely to disapprove, or kids believe their parents are less likely to disapprove. Friends are doing it, kind of the same reasons you hear for taking all sorts of drugs. The biggest problem with prescription drugs is the mistaken belief that they're safer than heroin, than cocaine, than marijuana, because they're legal drugs. The FDA approves them, and they have to go through a whole bunch of steps to get approved. I've heard this many times. The belief that there's no side effects, they're not addictive, it's okay to share these. I know adults who are very successful adults that have no problem sharing their medications, not understanding the danger that comes behind that. Accessible. Most parents don't know. Most parents don't know how to effectively communicate to their kids that this isn't okay. This isn't a conversation. My parents never had that conversation with me when I was a kid. You take the pills you're supposed to take when you're sick, that's it, end of story. I was told don't drink, don't do drugs, but prescription drugs were never a conversation in our house. That needs to change.
No, no, no. No, hot. Don't touch. Where are you now?
So that question, where are you now? We spend so much time keeping our kids safe when they're little. We can't quit just because they turn into teenagers. Something I found out most recently, something I didn't know, is we are the only country in the entire world where our pharmaceutical companies advertise to us consumers. You don't find that in any other country. You never turn on a TV anywhere in Europe and see 2 people in a bathtub taking a pill to fix their problems. It's only here in the United States. You go back to that slide where you've got a different pill for every age group. We in the U.S. are a pill-taking society. Something's wrong, you go to the doctor, you get a pill. Patients leave the doctor's office with a prescription in hand 7 out of 10 visits. And then this is the result.
This yellow one is for my postpartum depression. This one, sciatica, whatever that is. I got these after my hysterectomy. Or my prostatectomy, or stomectomy. And this guy is for the pain from my last hip replacement. And this orange one is... gotta go.
For teens, getting drugs can be as easy as opening your medicine cabinet.
15-year-old in Nashville that had the 200 pills. She had everything from painkillers all the way down to laxatives. She didn't care what was in there, and guess what? People were buying it without a problem. Other 15-year-olds. So now, what do we do about it? Okay, we've outlined pretty well, I think, that it's a problem. So, secure and monitor, first 2 steps. Don't leave your medications on your countertops. Don't put them in your medicine cabinets. Put them away. If you can lock them, that's the best method. If that's not possible, put them in a private area, in a drawer in the bedroom, somewhere out of sight. Know how many pills you have. If a couple pills were to go missing from your bottle, would you know? Be confident in saying, yeah, I know if my babysitter, if my granddaughter, if my nephew took a couple pills, if they went missing. Know who comes in your house. Be aware of who they are. Third step, pretty simple. Dispose of your medications. If they're expired, if you're done using your prescription, if you don't need them for any reason, Janesville is a fabulous community when it comes to this. We have 3 drug drop boxes that are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Here's a couple pictures. One of them is located at the police department, right between the doors, unlocked all the time to get in there. One of them is located at Mercy Mall on Washington. One of them is located at Mercy East on Milwaukee Street. If Janesville is not your home community, Milton has one at the police department, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Edgerton has one at their police department open during their police hours. Beloit has one at their police department, and Evansville has one at their police department. It's very easy to dispose of your medications. Over-the-counter medications, prescription medications, even medications for your pets. If you don't need them, put them in the drug drop box. It keeps the medication out of our water system. It keeps the medication out of the hands of our kids.
When I go into a home for a death investigation, sometimes before I get there, law enforcement has rounded up the medications that were sitting out. They'll usually go into the bathroom and collect whatever in there. And then sometimes there's stuff sitting on the counters in the kitchen. I also look, because sometimes things get missed, and the frequent places that I find medications in people's homes are in the kitchen cabinets, usually near where the glasses are kept, by the kitchen sink, purses, and the dresser drawers next to the bed. If I'm looking there, then you can bet others are going to be looking there if they're in your home, looking for these medications. About the over-the-counter medications, stuff that's in your medicine cabinet, in the closet, in your bathroom, stuff that you've got in the cabinet above the stove. If you don't need it, if you're not using it, get rid of it. Kids are not only abusing the prescription medications, they're abusing the over-the-counter medications as well. You'd be amazed at what's expired in your medicine cabinet. A few years back when my dad was getting ready to move, I went through his medicine cabinet. He had stuff in there that was 8 years past the expiration date. I must have thrown away a half a Woodman's grocery bag full of over-the-counter medications. If you get a pain medication, if you're like me, you don't like to take pain medications because they tend to stop up the works. You might not take the whole prescription that you get. Get rid of them. There's no reason to keep them. If you have another pain issue, some other injury that you need pain medication for, you can see your physician, you can get another prescription for it if you need them, but don't keep them hanging around. If they expire, they won't do you any good, and they could potentially be dangerous. But worse, somebody else in your household can get a hold of them. And, kids as young as these two right up here, could get curious. I remember I was about, 4 when I decided that I liked the taste of the Bear aspirin chewables that my parents kept in the cupboard in the bathroom. They tasted like the Flintstone vitamin pills that I took. And I took half a bottle of baby aspirin at the age of 4 because I could reach them and they tasted good. Okay, so, you know, don't keep them in the house if you don't need them. Just put them in the drop box, get rid of them. And if you're helping somebody else, say you have a death in the family and you're cleaning out your mom or your dad's or your aunt's cupboards, just, you know, make sure that that's a priority, that you're getting rid of all the drugs in their house so that somebody else doesn't help themselves to them.
So we talked about that perception of them being safe, a perception that mom and dad won't really care because guess what, I'm not smoking pot, so it's fine. It's very important to communicate with your teen, with your granddaughter, with your grandson, with your niece, with your nephew, with any teenager that you have any sort of contact with, that it's not okay to be taking drugs of any kind, including prescription drugs. You know, these seem like no-brainers. Know where your teen is. I know that's easier said than done, but know who they're hanging out with. It's always a good indication of what's going on. Watch for warning signs, changes in behavior. Anybody want to talk about what that physically looks like if you see a kid that's high?
The one thing is, and pass this on to other parents, please. If you know other parents that have young kids, we know when our kid, I have 2 children, all right, and I know my kids' normal behavior. I know when they're being silly, and I know when they're sad, and I know when they're sick, and you can just know normal behavior. Pay attention, especially when they start getting into their teens, because that's where we're seeing these kids. There were a lot of warning signs before overdose. Okay, they're constantly tired now. They used to love sports, but now they don't like sports, they don't like working out, they don't like moving. Those things. Kids who are hyperactive now, they're not like that, but now, every day at a certain time, they're just crazy active. They come home from school, they're always, doing weird behaviors. Those are all signs. Opening the eyes to your children. The one thing is, if you're a parent out there who think you have perfect kids, they have good grades, they're sports kids, they have lots of friends, they're popular, they never get arrested, they don't drink, still keep your eyes open. If you don't, you have the possibility that your child could end up overdosing, not because of their bad decisions, or their problems of going and obtaining these things, but they're hanging out with a lot of kids who have access to this, are going to be put in a position where they want to try something. So pay attention to these things. Once they try it once, heroin, you can become addicted after the first try. Cocaine, yes, you can become addicted after the first try. Crack cocaine, yes, you can. Prescription meds, probably not. It's one of those things that they're going to take for a while, experiment with, but eventually they will, and they'll start going that next level. Have to take 2 pills instead of 1, 3 pills instead of 2, those kind of things. And they're going to increasingly start to change their behaviors, their look. Okay, it's very easy. Have you ever seen the pictures of someone who just is normal here, and then 5 years down the road who's been taking crack? We've all seen those horrible, horrible pictures. You can look at booking photos. They've been arrested over the years, and we can sit there and look at how their appearance has changed because it sucks the life out of them. Well, it's eventually going to happen with prescription meds. They're going to change their body. Their body's going to reject some of this stuff. They're going to have ailments. They're going to be going to the doctor more possibly because their internal organs might be getting eaten up because of the stuff that they're taking when they don't need it. Their body's going to reject it. Their body will react differently, so open their eyes. Pay attention. The problem is I've talked with some kids recently, and Ritalin, Adderall, those ADHD medicines, these kids were very honest with me. They were in a situation where they're drinking, and they got pulled over by an officer, and they found prescription pills in the car, and this guy took the fall for it. And he said it wasn't his, but he got pretty honest with me about those ADHD medicines. It's very popular in the high schools because it gives them clarity. It makes them study better, makes them pay attention more and really concentrate more when they take tests, and their grades are improving because of it. How scary is that? They don't see, like we talked about earlier, they don't see the negative effects of medicine. They think medicine has a purpose and it makes them feel good. And if they're getting better grades because of it, all right, that's the thing, is if they can stay up all night and study, okay, and then to get good grades like that, they might be taking something that's making them stay up. If it's Red Bull and things like that, okay, that's all right. We haven't heard of anybody overdosing on Red Bull or Monsters or anything like that. But the Adderall and the Ritalin, very popular drug in the high schools right now. Talk to your kids about it. Have your parents and the people who aren't here, please pass this on to the people who aren't here. Let's start opening up. I always tell people in regards to crime prevention, think like you could become a victim. It'll heighten your awareness, you'll make you pay attention more, because when you let down your guard, that's when you become a victim of some kind of a crime. That's when you're going to miss your children's warning signs that they're abusing prescription drugs. I hate to be that one person that's the mom that has to talk like the lady in the first commercial that we showed, or first news piece. And just so you know, has anybody traveled with their little prescription Monday through Friday pill bottle? Okay, you travel with that, you put it in your travel bag, and you have all your medicines for the whole day. If you have prescription medicine or narcotics in that little thing, and you get pulled over, and you don't have your prescription bottle, that's illegal. If you have Schedule II narcotics, you have anything that's a scheduled drug, that Vicodin, hydrocodone, anything like that, and if it's in that little Thursday, Monday through Friday pill bottle, and you have it with you and you don't have your prescription bottle, you can be arrested for possession of a Schedule II narcotic without prescription. We constantly pull people over and we'll arrest them for marijuana, and we'll have it on and we start searching them, and we have all these little white pills in their pockets. You know, they're putting them all in there. All the oxys are in the little pill, in the little baggies, things like that. Going through the airport, think about that. You don't. Sometimes you have a big pill bottle. You want to, you know, you want to keep your toiletries bag as little as possible so it fits in your suitcase. Well, you don't want to put that big pill bottle in there. Well, you have to. You can't transport those pills outside of that pill bottle. It has to have your name on it. Does that make sense? That's a common mistake that somebody who has no intent of committing a crime could be committing a crime like that. Okay? Schedule II. No, stuff like that. But you might get an officer that's overzealous and go, what is this pill? It looks like it might be oxy, and then you're going to be detained for a little while, and you got to explain. And you know, the thing is, most of us have common sense. We can realize that, and we'll talk to you. We know you're not our hydrocodone thief, smuggler, whatever it is, dealer. You know, so we do have some of that. But the thing is, these are things that people don't think about, that if they do have hydrocodone, you realize you're not supposed to drive a car when you have Vicodin in your system? And we have drug driving now. If you're driving and you have a traffic accident and you have Vicodin in your system, all you have to do is have a certain amount in your system that could be considered drug driving. That's probably the most abused drug driving medication out there right now. It says do not operate heavy machinery, but everybody has it on there because they got a back. Oh, my back hurts. I'm gonna take a Vicodin and hydrocodone. There's a new type of hydrocodone that's coming out. It's almost purely hydro is what we hear, and it's gonna be. It doesn't have the slow release. It's more. Is anybody a pharmacist in here? It's one of those ones that. It's a new drug that's gonna be scary for me in law enforcement, thinking, oh my gosh, that's the next hydrocodone. It's a very pure form of it, yeah. No, that's a great question. And that's why our presentation is here. Good drugs gone bad. Every drug based off the FDA, and there's some that aren't approved by the FDA but still hit the market, they have a very valid purpose for somebody who has pain, who has chronic diseases, things that these medicines are very strong. Morphine, stuff like that, extremely good for a purpose. It has a purpose.
And even the most dangerous drugs, as long as somebody's willing to pay for them, pharmaceutical companies will continue to make them.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, we have an uphill battle in regards to working with our pharmacists and our doctors, first of all, not to be just giving it out. 5 million prescriptions filled a month in Wisconsin. That's scary. It's a business. They make money, right? And if they can make money on it, they're going to continue to do it. It's just up to us to take care of our children. Really pay attention to them. Don't get it in their hands. Watch out where they're at. Pay attention to their behaviors. So, is this kind of the last slide? Call 911. Okay, this is a good thing. Jennifer, you know this for sure. I can give you some good horror stories from a cop perspective. I've read the reports. I've been on calls, alcohol overdose of a kid where they just brought him into the ER and then they left and he was dead in the wheelchair because the kids did not call 911 at the party, underage drinking party they were at. The kid threw up on himself, basically choked and lost his airway, and nobody helped him, and then they freaked out and didn't know what to do. So, and anything, these kids need to be taught that if they're at a party and they've done something wrong, they have to have that open line of communication with their parents that they can call you, or they know that they can call law enforcement. They have to call law enforcement if their kids possibly do something bad and overdose. How do they respond to this if they're put in that position? You know, you just let them know, yeah, somebody's going to get in trouble, but do you want your friend to lose their life? These kids freak out thinking that they're going to be punished to the fullest and don't think about the life that they could save by contacting 911 and how to respond if they're put into that uncomfortable peer pressure situation that all high school students will eventually be in. So having that open line of communication with those kids. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Not just the kids that are afraid of getting into trouble, it's the parents too. I have had probably a dozen different cases come to mind just off the top of my head where the parents were enabling drug abuse. They knew their kids had a problem. They knew the kid had come home under the influence, and they decided to let their child just sleep it off. And the kid never wakes up. And then I'm there. And sometimes it's an issue of denial. Sometimes the parents involved in these cases are not just enabling this behavior, they're modeling this behavior because they have abuse issues of their own. Denial is a very powerful influence on just about everybody. And if you're in denial about your own problem, you're more likely to be in denial about your child's problem. So if you have someone in your family, whether it's a spouse, yourself, another child that's living in the home, get them help. If you're afraid of what's going to happen as a consequence of getting your child into treatment, whether you're worried about them losing a job, you're worried about them missing school, you're worried about the expense, I want you to put that in perspective of the expense and the bother and the heartbreak of planning your child's funeral. Okay? You have choice. You do something about it, or you stand at graveside. That's the reality that I see. And all the guilt and the self-recrimination and the promises to do better will not bring that child back from the dead. It does not fix anything afterwards, no matter how sorry you are that you didn't act sooner. The time to act is right now. So, again, if you're enabling this kind of behavior, stop. Kick them out of the house if you have to, get them into treatment, whatever it is. Just stop allowing this type of behavior to continue in your home. And if you have a problem yourself, get some treatment now. Because your younger kids, if they see you doing it, then it must be okay. I can't tell you how many times I've been on Facebook and I've seen somebody post about, oh, well, I just had a root canal. So I'm going to take a couple of my Vicodin and have a beer, and that should really take it off. Oh my God. They're publishing their drug abuse. That is drug abuse right on Facebook. And some of these people I know are professionals. They're professional people. And they're doing this kind of a thing, and it just floors me that they think this is acceptable. And this is the kind of thinking we have to stop. Okay, so I'll get off my little soapbox here on this particular topic, but I can't tell you how easy it is to just lose somebody because you didn't speak up. You didn't take action because you were afraid to do so.
One more quote here, and this is by our sheriff here in Rock County. It is important that we work together as a community to ensure the success of drug enforcement and the prevention of drug abuse by our fellow citizens. It's really all of our jobs. Janesville Mobilizing for Change is just one piece that are key partners in achieving success in a drug-free community. We do what we do as community members, partnering with our law enforcement, partnering with all of our community members, because it really does take all of us to make this change. It doesn't fall just on the shoulders of parents or just on the shoulders of law enforcement. If we want our community to be different and better, we all need to work together to do that. I have a couple of thank yous, and then I know you wanted to talk about the VISTA program. I want to thank the police department and the Rock County Coroner's Office and the Janesville School District for all helping participate today. Tony's Pizza and Mac's Pizza Shack, Lori Ann's Sweet Life Bakery, and the Hedberg Public Library for providing the space for us here today. Please eat more pizza, because I don't want to take it home. Just saying right now. Everybody should have gotten an evaluation when they came in. It's really important to get some feedback. Like Chad said, we're hoping to continue to do these presentations. Just leave them on the table or on your chair or wherever on your way out. There's more materials over there on the table about getting involved in our coalition. We meet once a month. We're working on prescription drugs specifically and underage drinking specifically. And I'll let you do your spiel about the VISTA program, and then we have our drawing, and we can get everybody on their way. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We all really appreciate it.
I'm Nathan Scaife. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista member at Craig High School. AmeriCorps Vista is kind of like the Peace Corps, but you stay within the United States for a year. I work for the Department of Public Instruction. One of the big focuses that they're trying to focus on within the past couple of years is getting families more involved in the schools. And the research has shown when parents are involved in their child's education, they do better in school academically, and they're less likely to get involved in drugs and alcohol and things like that. And one of the opportunities that we have for you guys, especially if you're a parent of a Craig student, we have an action team. It's a group of people, parents, community members, administrators, teachers, and myself that kind of get together and come up with ways to improve the school. Our next meeting is on the 18th, I believe. If you would like more information about that, come and see me.
Any questions that we can answer from law enforcement, coroner, school district?
My name is Hector Romo. I've been in Janesville for almost 2 years. And I've seen some doctors here in Janesville, family doctors. And it's so easy to get a prescription and do explain it, go and fake whatever, say, I can't sleep, and then this new doctor came to town. I don't know if I can say his name. Okay. Boy, somebody with that, bro.
I went from second shift to day shift and work, and I couldn't sleep. I used to sleep for 2-3 hours, and then I was dead and weak about it. I was weak, sleeping. So I asked the doctor, what can I do? He says, okay, we're going to give you Ambien. I said, okay, how is it? We're good. You're not supposed to be operating machine? He said, no. So I took the Ambien, it helped a little bit. Then I was saying 3 more hours.
What is it?
He said, well, I think you gotta let the other person. So I forgot to begin. I was cranky and hell. I said, I didn't like it, I dropped it. I'm cranky enough. I already know. I'm not very drug tolerant. During that time, I had a sterile cough. And he prescribed something with codeine and used to knock me out the whole night. So after a cough went away, I went to the doctor and I asked him. This also brought in, I said, hey, do you prescribe it? That's unethical. I found an honest doctor. I mean, not saying they're all dishonest. He told me right away, it's unethical. It's for golf. That's more, it's not stupid, bullshit.
One of the initiatives we're trying to take around here is to do some education of our medical professionals, because they don't really have classes on how to do pain management, for example. They don't have those types of courses, and this is such a new problem. You know, you heard Chad's been a police officer for 16 years. The first time we're seeing this, so this is somewhat new. So our doctors need just as much education as the rest of us do as to what this is and how this affects our community. Part of that is the drug monitoring program that is a matter of software issues, but should be up to keep that communication line from pharmacists and doctors open so they know if that sharing information can prevent some of that doctor shopping from going on. And we also have the patient satisfaction is very important to doctors. There are those surveys, there are those doctor ratings things. So 7 out of 10 people that walk into a doctor's office walk out with a prescription. If they don't walk out with a prescription, they're not happy people. And they spread that they're not happy people to others. I know moms who take their kids to the doctor because they're sick. Oh, I heard it's a virus and I didn't get a medicine. I wish the doctor would just give me a medicine. It's that way all across. So it's a balance of education for both our community members and our medical professionals.
Just last week I had a conversation with Dr. Murdy. He's a doctor over at the Dean Clinic, and he is interested in putting on an educational meeting for the physicians in our area to address prescribing issues and drugs of abuse related issues from the medical perspective in an attempt to address this issue of prescription drug abuse. And he asked me to help him out with that. So I'm expecting them to have their meeting sometime later this year, and really looking forward to participating in that discussion as to how the medical community can make a difference and hopefully put a dent in this problem. I have been long concerned about the availability of pain medications through the mail. Some of you probably are familiar with this through your insurance company, where your insurance company's got it set up that you order your drugs and you get 3 months worth at a time instead of just 1 month worth at a time, and they send them to you through the mail instead of going to Walgreens or to another pharmacy. Another problem that I see is with the Veterans Administration. They have that kind of system set up for the VA, so I'll often see people with 3 months worth of Oxy sitting in their house because it all came in the mail, 3 months worth or 6 months worth, whatever it's set up. And so they've got, you know, hundreds of pills available. And I really don't think it's necessary for someone with chronic back pain to have access to 300 Vicodin in their house at one time. So that's a concern, and I'm hoping that with discussion and deliberation about best practice and pain management and palliative care issues, that our medical community can recognize that, you know, there may be some self-imposed limits that that they could set up for themselves, some policies and procedures they can put into place, not to make it harder for people to get pain medication that they need, but to make it a little bit harder for people who don't need it to abuse it.
Any other questions? Yeah.
There's definitely alternative natural remedies out there people might want to consider trying before having to go to these dangerous drugs that are put in houses and around kids and stuff. Might be something good to teach your kids too, you know, hey, let's try these natural things and maybe the doctor, you know. So there's definitely alternatives other than these prescription drugs.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And some of that preventive care, living healthy to begin with and eating healthy to begin with, so that you don't end up with some of those 5 million prescriptions a month. Yeah, I completely agree with you that healthy alternatives or herbal alternatives, there's a lot of different routes that people can take before you get to those hardcore drugs. Thanks. Yeah.
The coroner may answer my question, but if all the pharmacies in a certain town or a certain county, if it added up, if there was one Vicodin pill being dispensed for every resident in that county, would anyone know? I mean, is that one way to address the potential supply by looking at mathematically how much is being in the geographical area?
Sure. I actually heard the statistic that in the United States, prescription painkillers, there's enough supply out there right now that's prescribed for every single person in the entire country to get 5 pills a day. That's how much is out there that's prescribed, that's being distributed.
Not of Vicodin.
Of prescription painkillers.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't say which one, it just said the prescription painkillers. So yeah, there's a lot. So.
Sorry, I'll have to leave right now.
We're having an uphill battle actually with a lot of the pharmacies, the big chain pharmacies, and trying to get them to not focus on customer service as much and more prevention. And that's hard to do because it's about, unfortunately we're uphill battle with money and making it a business. It's not necessarily a service per se, it's more of a business. And we're going to keep working at it across the country. There's a lot of things. There's a thing called RX Patrol, where it's a countrywide. Anytime there's a robbery at a pharmacy, they take those statistics, and we're trying to statistically crime fight against these people who it's a problem that's only going to increase in our life. Addictions is going to continue until we can prevent them from getting these pills. So we're just touching the surface. I'm excited to see us make some progress through legislation and through crime prevention. The way they build them, just in themselves, can prevent a lot of this robberies from occurring. We just got to break through that. It's going to be an uphill battle.
It's a mindset too. We live in a society that has a pill for everything. Take a pill, you feel better. Take a pill, you'll be happy. Take a pill, you'll be sleepy. Take a pill and you'll have a better erection. The attitude towards that is pervasive, and if we can move past that and think about taking care of our own needs in non-drug related ways, because that's all we're doing is drugging ourselves, then we can have a healthier society and not have nearly as much drug related crime. Put us both out of the chat.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that was brought up is people are not calling when somebody is using a substance and they don't want to get in trouble. I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there is legislation coming up that there will be a Good Samaritan law being brought forward that if they do call, they will not be in trouble for calling to save somebody's life. That legislation is being proposed and will be brought forth. So if you would, as great citizens, send emails to say that you support such legislation to help with problems like this so we don't have kids dying. That is being brought forward very, very soon.
Do you know who's sponsoring the bill?
Not off the top of my head.
You can email to...
Yeah, I know it was Southern Alliance.
Yeah.
So
it's cool.
Thank you all for coming on tonight.
Eat pizza.
Yeah, please.